So we do. I mean, and, oh, you know what? Because then I remember too. After a year or two at camp, we started hanging out away from camp.
Exactly. I remember, God, some of my fondest memories of that age were like when I was old enough to drive. I'd come down to your house on the weekend. Come down on a Friday. We generally go out to Straw Hat Pizza Parlor. Or
oh yeah, right. It was just up the street from my house. Yeah.
And order a giant pie, and then we'd go back and play music for hours,
and eat Oreos.
Yeah.
Well, that was at your house. Your dad always had Oreos around, I think.
Oh God, yes, yeah, he did.
But,
so, yeah, I'd come. God, I think I was practically spent almost every weekend at your house for about 3 years.
And I remember, even before you could drive, sometimes we would take the bus.
I remember.
So you lived like about an hour, 45 minutes away.
I remember sitting in the back of the bus playing.
Yeah, I remember taking the bus up from San Jose to like the San Carlos station, and you and your mom or your dad coming and picking me up, and I'd spend the weekend there, and then I'd go back on Sunday night or something.
Yeah.
So we were before you could even drive.
It kept us out of trouble. Some of our friends were going out and crashing their cars and waking up in someone's driveway with someone hitting them with the hose because I think we stayed. Our noses pretty clean.
I think so, because we're busy playing guitar. I remember the first time we played some America songs, back then, Horse with No Name and stuff like that, and Sandman.
Jim Croce.
Yeah. Oh, and of course
Operator.
James Taylor. You were really good at figuring out James Taylor licks kind of on the guitar.
Yeah.
Even though you say your finger picking maybe wasn't that good, but you could. His finger picking was so unorthodox. I mean, you had a great way. I remember you showing me. You can close your eyes, probably right when that album came out or something.
Yeah, that's when I had my thumbnail really long and I kept my nails. Now I can kind of still do that, but it was I like that. Yeah, it's still my favorite James Taylor song.
I have a couple other really distinct memories of like a song in particular that was tied into something we were doing, and one was "Stairway to Heaven." First, I'd never heard, it had just been released, and I'd never heard it. I hadn't heard it yet, or on the radio or something like that. And I remember you showing it to me in the back of a bus. We were riding from San Jose up to your house, and sitting in the back of the bus, and you said, "Hey, look! I just figured this out," or something, and you had, obviously some.
I borrowed the record from a friend of mine. My friend Pete, I think, loaned me the record, and so I was able to figure that out. And I think I'd just gotten. My dad had just bought me this Martin D35. That was my first Martin.
Yeah, I remember.
Guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went up to.
You were going to go buy a Yamaha, and Dad came back, brought out the big checkbook.
I wanted a Dreadnought. I had this little Yamaha FG110, sort of a triple O size. It was a nice sounding guitar. It was like an $80 guitar.
Yeah.
Got Eddie Kramer's music in San Carlos. But I wanted a Dreadnought. For some reason, a kid at school had a Yamaha FG300, which has the sort of elaborate,
a little almost hummingbird looking
kind of almost hummingbird. Yeah, and they're around $200 at the time, and I badgered my dad that I wanted another guitar.
Spend $200 on a guitar.
And he said, "You just got this one last year. What's wrong with it?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'd had it a couple of years." I said, "Well, I was really into Crosby, Stills and Nash, and they all had Dreadnought guitars.
Yeah.
So I wanted some kind of Dreadnought." So I thought an FG300 is attainable at least. A kid at school had one. I thought it was a pretty nice guitar, and it looked flashy. And so we went up to San Francisco, and we went to a couple of music stores, and saw a couple of knockoff. They were starting to make Martin knockoffs then.
Takamine was.
So we looked at one, and this Takamine was like $320. It looked like a. My dad kind of went, "I think that Yamaha looks kind of cheap,
Oh, right, but it looked classier. The Takamine definitely had the Martin
it looked
look.
just like a Martin. So I thought, well, this is really nice, and I like this guitar. And he goes, okay, we'll come back if you like it. But, so we went to Don Ware's Music City.
I was going to say there were two stores we hung out. Don Ware's was one, and the other was like in Daly City or on Geneva.
Was that
near the Cow Palace?
Something to do with Union? Was it Union? No, I'm thinking of.
I can't remember what it's called. Well, I had that store, Union Grove.
Grove, right?
But there was another store in Daly City, or at least I think further south. Anyway, but Don Ware's was like on Columbus or something.
Columbus, right?
Part of town, right?
He had a big Martin dealership, and so I remember going down to this room downstairs where they had all these Martin guitars, and this guy brought out a bunch. He had 18s, 28s, 35s, and I said to myself, "What the hell are we doing here?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, I'm going to spend $300. Might as well spend $400 and get you the real article,
Yeah.
He says, I'm not going to get you some. I'm not going to get you some copy. If we're going to spend this much, so pick one out. And I'm like 17, and I'm like, "You're kidding me, right? This is a joke." And he goes, "No, no, just pick out the one you like, you know." And so they brought 6 or 7 D35s in. It's a huge store.
Yeah.
One floor was entirely devoted to electric, and then the
Yeah.
downstairs was all acoustic. And some of them, I remember, were actually in these plastic bags.
Oh,
they
yeah.
hadn't even
They
been
hadn't even come out of the, right.
Yeah, they had strings on them, but so this guy brought up several D35s, and I don't know why I gravitated to the D35, but you
Yeah.
know, probably because it was one
It
higher
seemed like,
than the
right,
D28.
and it was a little more
so-
exotic looking with the 3-piece back and stuff.
Yeah, and if I had to do over again, I probably would have got a D28. But
Right, a little more research before the
yeah,
fact,
I didn't,
but,
but
caught by surprise.
But anyway, I played several, and I picked this one out, and we ended up buying it, and I was just, and I think I learned Stairway to Heaven on that guitar the same week.
Ah, yeah.
And
yeah.
so we're on the bus with my new Martin, and you had your Yari. Do you still have that guitar?
I still do.
Oh,
it's,
God,
it's
it's great
right
you
down the
hung
hall there.
It's great
Yeah.
you hung on to that.
Yeah,
That was a
and-
really nice, it's like it's 00018 kind of
Yeah.
mahogany
Oh,
guitar.
actually, really OM size even. It was a little bigger.
Was it enough?
Yeah. But it was an interesting story how I got that, because I was 14, and I remember, and I hadn't been taking guitar lessons. I took lessons until I was about 12 or so. And then when I was 14, I started teaching. I was in 8th grade. And I somewhere down the line, this is like right around the same time, we were both like drooling over that fancy Yamaha, the $300 Yamaha, or $200 Yamaha.
Yeah, the FG 300.
Yeah, but it was $200. And I remember we looked at it a lot at a store here near me, Reich's Music was the place we would go, down at Hillsdale and Meridian and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's where we'd go play that. I don't think they even carried Martins there. I don't remember. But again, we would not even talk about Martins, because it's like, oh my God, we're kids.
Well,
we're not getting Martins.
It's unattainable.
It's way out of the thing. But so I finally come to the point where I could. My mom was going to buy me that $200 Yamaha or something, and so I called my old guitar teacher, Bill Monday, and who again I hadn't seen much in the last year or so.
I remember him.
And I called him and said, "Hey, Bill, you know what? I'm ready for a nice steel string guitar, because I think really just had I probably had that guitar the first time I went to camp, so it's probably the only guitar you ever saw of mine."
You had a nylon string or something.
I definitely, you know what? I might have gone one year with only a nylon, because that was my very first guitar was this $50 Mexican guitar.
I remember that guitar.
Piece of junk. I still have that too. Even with the crack in it that it got when my sister threw it at me. You know? But I deserved it.
Stop playing that thing.
Yeah. So I called Bill, and I said, "Hey, Bill, I'm ready to go buy this nice Martin, or not Martin, this nice Yamaha, and where should I go?" or something like that. And he said, "You know what? I have a friend that has a store that is starting to carry this new brand, or actually, I think it was a little well known, but not maybe too around here, called Yari, and that he was kind of a small builder in Japan that was building guitars a notch or two better than Yamahas, and they were a little bit more handmade and stuff like that."
Yeah.
And so it was the same thing. I think this guitar was $240. It was kind of like the same deal. My mom decided that she could spring for the extra $40 because on my teacher's recommendation that this was and now I look at that guitar. It's an OM. It's solid. It's mahogany. It's solid mahogany. It was built in about 1970. Yeah, 69 or 70. And it's still a stunning guitar. You know, it's pretty neat. I mean, it's definitely beat up. It's got kind of this sort of conditioning on it. You know.
Gosh, I wish I had some of my first guitars like that. I don't. This is the one that goes back the furthest. This is from 1976. I mean, the D35 that I had, I sold it in '76. I traded it actually. I made a really bad deal. I traded it for I wanted a pre-war D28, and I traded it and single odd 28 I had. To this guy who will sure remain nameless down in the San Fernando Valley, plus $300 cash for a 1943 Martin D28 that I later found out had been. I didn't know anything when I just knew it was. He said
it hit the right year.
It hit the right year, but it had been retopped with a Sitka top, rebraced, refinished.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a Frankenstein that had almost no original parts. It was like buying a classic car and then opening up the hood and finding out it's got an engine from a Corvair in it or something.
Yeah.
So I ended up trading that guitar straight across for this one at Griffin. They knew it was a hatchet job, and they were gonna fix it up and sell it as a restored instrument. But it led me to this one. But my dad never forgave me for selling that D35. When I told him, I just moved to Santa Barbara a couple months before, and when I told him what I'd done, he was livid. Oh boy, he was just. And up until my dad passed away in September of 2008, and he was almost 90, and even about a month before he died, he said, "You remember that Martin guitar I bought you?"
Oh man!
He said,
Took it to his deathbed with
yeah,
him.
by then it'd become kind of a joke.
Right.
But he'd say, "You know what? Why did you ever sell that guitar? I can't believe you sold that." And I at the time I made all these years ago I made all these excuses about why I did it and why, and I said the wrong thing. I said, "Well, the new ones just aren't as good as the old ones." And he was like, "What do you mean they're not as good?"
Yeah.
I spent $500 on that guitar, and now you said it's not as good. And he wasn't a guitar player. I mean, at the time I had this herringbone Martin fever going, and I was willing to do whatever it took, even if it cost me my rent money and my whatever.
Your car.
Practically, yeah. I think I had to live in my car as a result of buying some of those guitars I had, but back then. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's interesting you've kept your guitars, and my little Yamaha I had it until about 10, 12 years ago. And
the FG110, the first one?
Yeah, my brother had it for many years, and he had it for like 20 years, then he gave it back to me, and then I ended up selling it down at a local music store for, I can't remember why. It wasn't even worth that much. Right. Somebody wanted it, somebody thought it was really cool and wanted to buy it, so I sold it. But I'm glad you've hung on to yours.
It is neat. I mean, I really don't ever play them much, but if I go down there and I see the Yari, like even sitting out of the case, I put it back in the case because I knew Corey took it out and was playing it or something. I said, you know, put this one away. I don't want it out when your friends are here and stuff like that. It's very sentimental. And even my old nylon string guitar has I still have the original case with a leprechaun sticker on it, because I remember when I was in 6th grade, we flew back to South Bend, Indiana to visit some of my relatives. So I got a sticker from Notre Dame that I put on my guitar case, and it's still there. I better get a picture of that and show our Total Guitars folks something.